Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Distilled. Today we're sitting with Ayna, who is the co-founder of Matchstick, a purpose-led B2B lead generation company. Ayna, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
No worries. And I suppose we'll start off by speaking a little bit about Matchstick, what led you to founding it, and then how it has taken shape and what you guys do.
Sure. I'm not sure how far back to go, where to start, but I'll give a little bit of introduction about myself. I'm originally from Turkmenistan. I will let people, do their homework and find out more about Turkmenistan. But yeah, it's a country in Central Asia. It's a beautiful country, but I never felt like I belonged there. It's quite a conservative country, so I always knew that I wanted to leave. And yeah, long story short, was not easy, but found myself in Prague, Czech Republic. So my background is I've been painting my whole life. So I have also studied fine art, experimental media, future design. I have a lot of degrees because I had to extend my visa, like to be able to stay outside of the country legally. And I also studied journalism. So I think that in part contributed to me eventually finding my way to sales. So it's like communicating with people. And even though I'm an introvert, I do really enjoy those like meaningful, one-to-one kind of conversations where you really make a connection. And I think that's the best kind of, I guess, personality type to work in sales. Even though a lot of people believe that you do need to be, an extrovert and kind of charismatic and all of that. But I think it's more about those one-to-one connections rather than being the loudest and
Yeah.
that kind of person. So anyway, yeah, I worked in sales for about 7 years before starting Matchstick. So my first business experience, maybe I should mention that, was I had my own henna tattoo shop. So I lived in Provincetown in Massachusetts for 6 summers. So it was like a seasonal gig. And yeah, it was a way to make a lot of money in a short amount of time, to go back to Europe and to like support my studies and just to pay, for the whole year. And yeah, I worked a lot of different jobs. And then I discovered that, yeah, I could do this. So as I mentioned, I'm an artist. So it's something that I enjoy. It's something that I'm good at. And I saw that, yeah, it's a seasonal town, so a touristic town. So a lot of people come there on vacation, and yeah, there was a need. Like we started with airbrush tattoos, and then me and, the shop where I was renting the space, they said, why don't you try henna? You can charge more and you're really good at like freestyling. And it was so much fun. Like I really enjoyed it. And it was my first experience of, doing something that I'm good at and something that people want or need. And it was like financially really profitable and it was great experience for me personally. So I would say that was my first like proper sales experience, because there's a lot into, yeah, like just doing all aspects of the business, even though it was just a small gig. But yeah, so I really enjoyed that. And then, working in the corporate world, working in sales and stock media. Yeah, at some point I kind of have had enough of like doing it for other people. And I was like, okay, I'm really good at this. So why don't I do it for myself instead of, for some other company? And together with my partner, whose background is also in sales, we decided to found Matchstick. And again, we combined something that we are good at, that we love, and something that the market needs because, lead generation is something that every single business needs. Like there's no business if you're not getting leads. So, yeah, in that sense, I think it's a great model, and we wanted to make it. We want to have purpose in it. So we are not just like selling to make money, but also go to bed like in peace with ourselves.
Yeah.
So that's why we decided to work with primarily purpose-led businesses because we want to see more good businesses succeed and succeed while they're making a difference. So that's how Matchstick came along.
Yeah, nice. So I imagine there's a couple of things I wanted to go back to. It's cool that you started off doing henna tattoos and stuff, and I can imagine that is quite a good introduction to sales and like creating connections with people and trust. Because when you're putting ink on people's bodies, I'm sure there's plenty of people who come in and they don't care. They're just like, I want that one, and that's it. But yeah, I imagine it gave you good appreciation for, understanding people's concerns and building that trust and that relationship with them before you could proceed.
Yeah, it's very intimate, because I mean, first of all, you have to hold their hand or like, whichever part of their body. I mean, I've tattooed people's like chests. I've tattooed, both heads, like backs, feet, just most areas of the body, but usually it's the arm or the hand. So it is a very close and intimate experience because you're holding them for at least, 10, 15 minutes and you're asking them about the design and you're trying to get to know them. And a lot of the time it was like traditional henna design, so kind of flowery, those like patterns. But sometimes people would show me like pictures of their pets and they would say, I want to get this as a real tattoo, so I want to try it out as a henna because so it wasn't actually, just to be like correct, it wasn't always henna. It was also black jaguar, which is very similar to henna. It's also a paste, but it comes from a different kind of plant, and the ink that it produces is almost black, so it's like very deep blue. So it actually, when it dries, it looks like a real tattoo, but it fades over about 2 weeks. So yeah, so it was really great for people to try out, before they commit to the real thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've done a few portraits of pets, which is really difficult because I don't know how familiar you are with henna, but that's usually or black jaguar, which is the same concept. It's in a cone, and you have to like squeeze the paste. So it's not like you're not using a brush or a pen,
Yeah.
and you need a really steady hand. And yeah, so it is like a little ritual, and like you said, yeah, it really, you get to build that connection, and there's a lot of trust because the person, I mean, they would see the designs that I've done in the past, so they know that, okay, she's good, she knows what she's doing. But they would still kind of just, and sometimes people would just say, no, I trust you, just do whatever you feel like doing,
Yeah.
and we would do like create this little story on their hand or their arm. And it would stay with them for a few weeks, and it would, like, people would come back to me summer to summer, so people would come from like all over the States. This was their like, spot for the summer. And they were like, oh, we're so happy you're back,
Yeah.
so yeah, it was great, like, to make people happy through such a yeah, like I said, intimate kind of experience. Like
Yeah.
putting art on someone's body, it doesn't really compare to anything.
Yeah. Yeah. It's quite a change. But that's cool. That's a cool story to have. Those are the kind of, I think, experiences, situations that really make your like 20s. That when you find somewhere where you just sort of, you're flowing well, you find a job that you can do that just sort of makes you feel good, makes you money, and gives you freedom to do what you want to do.
Yeah, I mean, it was really tiring, because I was working like three jobs. At some point, I was working probably 80 hours a week, something like this.
Yeah.
And I was in my 20s. I also would. It was like on the ocean, so I want to go to the beach and I want to spend some time with my friends.
Yeah.
So yeah, there were a lot of like nights when I would sleep for like 4 hours and then go work in the coffee shop and then go do henna for 8 hours. And it's a lot of yeah, you give a lot of energy because you're constantly speaking to people, so it was quite tiring, and my hand would also get really tired because you have to squeeze
Yeah.
the cone constantly. But it's an amazing experience. Like, I'm so happy that I did it. And yeah, it just showed me that, what, like, it's possible to work for yourself, like in a way that you're doing something that you love, that you're good at, and that
Yeah.
makes other people happy, so everybody wins.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So then eventually you came to setting up Matchstick. And how do you guys deliver your services? I know you've got three sort of tiers. You've got the Ignite, the Spark, and then what's the
Match.
third one? Match. Yeah. So you deliver your services sort of on a tiered basis depending on what people need.
So those tiers are mainly, I guess, for the type of customer. So we work with primarily purpose-led businesses, but they can be like micro businesses or like small businesses. So it can be like really small business where it's a solopreneur or just a couple of people. Usually, I would say it's between 10 to 20. That's kind of like a good size for us, up to 50 people. And then we also have nonprofits. So for nonprofits, we have a separate offer, more tailored to their budgets. And yeah, nonprofits, like, the lead generation there is in the sense of helping them with finding corporate partners, because a lot of nonprofits are over reliant on trusts and foundations. Like, that's usually where the money comes from.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of competition for that. And it's not enough, and it's not sustainable. And at the same time, there is a huge untapped opportunity in the corporate world. And especially now, with all the CSR, ESG commitments. I mean, there's a lot of businesses who really care about these things. And there's also a lot of businesses who just have to, check off the check mark. But it's surprising how difficult it is for these corporates and nonprofits to find each other.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's like, for them, the service that we offer is to connecting nonprofits with the corporates. And for the for-profit businesses, it's connecting them with new potential clients. So in terms of, so it's always like the same service, and that is lead generation, and it's outbound lead generation. So just very briefly, I guess to give like the background, like overall, I would say there's three sources where sales leads can come from, and that would be inbound, and these are leads who come to you. So that's usually from your marketing efforts. Maybe you put out some great content, or like advertisement, or people respond to your newsletter. So that's called inbound leads. There is referrals. So these are in your network, or it can be like your former clients, they refer you to a new client. And then there is outbound. And that's when you yourself go out and you identify people who you think would be a good fit, and go and reach out to them directly. So that's what we do. We do outbound, excuse me. So we do outbound. And I just want to touch base on like the benefits of that, because a lot of people are really reliant on inbound and referrals.
Mm,
Sorry, let me take a sip of
it's okay.
water.
Yeah, no worries.
So yeah, a lot of people are really reliant on inbound and referrals, and those are great leads, but you don't have so much control in terms of when they're coming. You
Mm,
don't know when the next referral is going to come from. And with inbound, it can be like hit or miss, because sometimes people who reach out to you, they don't quite understand what you do, and it might not be like a good fit. And it also takes a lot of time. Like if you're putting out content, it will take a lot of time for people to start noticing, for you to grow your network. Whereas with outbound, you first of all, you decide exactly who you're going to approach, so that gives you a lot of control in that sense. You define your ideal client profile and you go after them. You also, once you work out the formula, you kind of know that, okay, if I contact 100 people, I'm going to get whatever, 5 meetings out of them, and I'm going to close one of them. So eventually you have this formula which you can just do month in over month. And so yeah, you have more control over your pipeline. And it's also relatively cheap, and like not it doesn't take too long to implement. So yeah, so how we do it is people come to us, we define their ideal client profile, so that's who they want to target, and yeah, we work with them. So it's very, very much like tailored to each individual business.
yeah,
And yeah, we deliver our campaigns multi-channel, so primarily email, but also social media, LinkedIn. We do even like dynamic videos. So that's, I think, something that kind of, breaks the pattern when people receive a video with a face. It like really
yeah,
builds trust. And
yeah,
we even do direct mail. So we send like handwritten letters and postcards, and also warm calls. So when we see that people engage with the campaigns, if we find their phone number, pick up the phone without phone calling. That's still really effective. So yeah, we do this multi-channel approach because I think that's the best way to yeah, for people really to remember you, because everybody has their own, communication patterns, preferences, and attention is really difficult to get. So you have to approach people from all the different angles. And yeah, ultimately the goal is to book the meeting. So to make that introduction. And then once we book the meeting, it's over to our client and they build on that relationship and close the deal. So we make those introductions.
yeah. Nice. And do you find as purpose driven and impact driven businesses who believe a lot in what they're trying to do, and they're trying to do something that is a positive impact, do you find people in the purpose driven sector are more hesitant to do outreach and to sell than people in just sort of like the purely corporate for profit sector?
That's a great question. I think in general, unfortunately, people are hesitant to do outreach. I mean, it's both unfortunate and fortunate because it gives us a lot of opportunity. There is a big market because people are not doing it.
Yeah.
I think a big part of it is the stereotype that we get from films like The Wolf of Wall Street and, the like used car salesman. So that kind of
Mm,
perception of sales, that it's associated with deception and manipulation. And, unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there who want to take advantage of you, so it's good to be cautious. But usually it's because people either don't believe in what they're selling or they're just doing it to get paid. And, that's the unfortunate reality. Like, not everybody is lucky enough to be doing something that they love. Like, sometimes you just have to make money. So that's why sales, yeah, does have a lot of negative associations. But at the same time, there are ways to do it with integrity, and there are ways to do it where both the seller and the buyer win. And I think the most important is to believe in what you're selling and to approach it as solving problems rather than selling. Because I think a big misconception is that when you sell, it's like you have to convince people, you have to persuade them to buy your product. But really, it's more about finding people who have a need that you can solve. Because ultimately, the only sale that's going to happen is when somebody already wants or needs something, and you just show them a new way of getting it. So it's about, yeah, like finding those the right people. ideally at the right time, and just guiding them, showing them how you can help them. And I think, yeah, there's also fear of rejection, right? I think people take it personally, like inevitably it sucks, to be rejected, especially if it's your own business. But at the same time, unless you try, like every no gets you closer to a yes. And unless you try, you don't know if it's going to be a yes or a no. So I think, yeah, that's one of the kind of demons that we're fighting is this, negative perception of sales. And that's why my LinkedIn tagline is giving sales a great name. So
Yeah.
showing people that you can do it without, selling your soul, and yeah, in a way that both sides are happy.
Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna, geez, as somebody who's recently set up their own business, this is a great pep talk.
Oh, great. I'm happy to hear that.
But yeah, I wanted to. You mentioned about integrity there, and when you start working with a business, how much work do you do on defining like the overall sort of strategy and linking like the outreach that you're doing to their particular like ethos as a company or their values as a company? And would that be like the first step of what you do is like understanding where they're coming from and how they operate?
Yeah, I think that's really important for all types of businesses, for purpose led especially. I guess I would say it's crucial because if you are already, the solution that you're offering is trying to make a positive impact in the world, like trying to sell it, without integrity. So using some kind of like, trying to misguide people, or yeah, it wouldn't work. So you have to do it. I mean, also you have to believe in what you're selling. I think that's like number one rule to sales success. And that's why we chose to work with purpose-led businesses, because we don't want to sell stuff that we don't actually believe is, helping people.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think that's also one of the things that separates us from the competition. And I'm not saying that other agencies don't do that, but we are really human led. And right now, like there's so much AI, there's so much automation, and people are really over relying on volume and just kind of, it's called like spray and pray, when you
yeah,
just want to get out as many emails, as many messages as possible, and you just hope that something will stick. And sure, that's one way to do it, but it's also going to harm your reputation as a business. And I think it's a much more enjoyable and much more sustainable way to kind of invest a little bit of time into researching your ICP, so your ideal client profile, and thinking, okay, like, when is the best time to contact them? And yeah, personalizing your messaging, making it really relevant. And like you said, yeah, with every client, obviously everybody has their own needs. Some people might want to promote the new service that they're selling. With nonprofits, they are looking to raise like funds for a specific cause. So it's very individual. And I think that that makes it more enjoyable for us. That makes it more like successful in the longer term. And yeah, it works both ways for sure.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And sorry, I've actually just forgotten my question I was about to ask. Oh yeah, I was going to ask you. I just have a couple more questions.
Sure.
Good. But yeah, on your website, you say that the hardest part of closing a deal is finding it. So I suppose I was wondering, do you have any tips for people just starting out? You just mentioned there about ICP, about like understanding who your ideal customer profile is and when to reach them. So are there any general rules of thumb, do's and don'ts that you would recommend to people when they're doing that?
Sure. I have all the tips. Where do we start? So I can give one kind of more strategic one, and then maybe one kind of tactical, if that works. Yeah, so definitely when it comes to lead generation, it's one of those that you have to do it before you need it, because it takes time. And I think it's easy to get caught up in, when you have some project, you have some new client that you signed up, or a few clients, and it's like everything is going great, but you have to think like, okay, 3 months from now, when I finish
Yeah,
this project, you know, clients don't just magically appear. It really takes consistent effort. You have to consistently do the work, whether that's putting out content or, sending out some emails, sending out some LinkedIn connections. So it's a common mistake that we see people make, is not building their pipeline and kind of just not doing it in advance enough. So I think, do it before you need it, and ideally diversify. And what I mean by that is, what I talked about earlier. So you have inbound, outbound referrals. You want to, build your personal brand and put out some content, and also do some outbound. And all of these things, they will complement each other, because when you are reaching out to somebody, it's not a good idea to just reach out and say, hey, this is what I do, buy my stuff. Like, you want to offer some value. So that's why it's great to have some content, or to organize an event and invite them to an event, or just like to share some relevant industry insight. So yeah, diversify, do it in advance. And in terms of some actual maybe tactical takeaway, so I made a post about this 2 days ago, I think. It's called the buyer pyramid. And it's this idea that our potential market is, so if you imagine a pyramid, a triangle, it's split into stages based on the person's readiness to buy. So only 3% of our potential market, this is like anyone's potential market, only about 3% are ready to purchase now. So it's a really small number if you think about it.
Okay.
So the other 97%, they actually either don't need your service or they don't want it. Maybe they don't know that they need it. They maybe don't even know that they have a problem yet,
Yeah.
or they don't need it quite urgently, or maybe they are just like gathering information and they might need it, in the next 3 months or 6 months or a year. So it's important to, when you're doing any kind of like marketing communications or sales messaging, to just consider like which stage of the buyer's pyramid is my target audience is at. And they can be at different stages. And so you have to segment them and you have to adjust your messaging. Because if you're just going out and pitching your solution to everyone, and these people might not even know, they might not even be aware that they have a problem, it's not going to be productive. So in their case, they first need some educating and some nurturing, like we call it nurturing, where you just continuously expose them to your brand and you again offer value and slowly like guide them up the pyramid, so that when the time is right, the relationship is warmed up and they remember you. At the same time, there are ways to find people who are at the top of the pyramid. So that 3%, and I would say like the top 10% are people who you want to be having sales conversations with. And these things are called buying signals or buying triggers. So these are like some events or some actions that we want to watch for that signal that these people are, getting close to being ready to buy. So maybe they're attending certain types of events, or they're hiring for a certain type of role, or there is like some industry, like a big change in the industry, which signals to us that, there's going to be a need for this soon. So, I mean, sales is fascinating. Like, that's why I love it. It's, people think that it's just about like selling and closing a deal, but there is so much to it. Like, it's a whole journey, and you have to, you really have to use your brain and you have to build that trust and you have to educate people and form that relationship and guide them towards, making that purchasing decision. So, it would be maybe easier if you have the visual. So, I don't know if you want to like link to the post, or maybe for yourself, like you want to check it out. I think it's a really useful tool to just think of that and remember that there are all these different stages, and my messaging has to correspond to the stage that the person is in.
Yeah.
And the idea is, to keep, moving them up the pyramid.
Yeah. Nice. I think that's a nice, like, simple way of thinking about the whole. I know it's so much deeper and more complex than that, but like sales in general, from a strategic level, always be on the lookout, always be sort of developing your lead generation, diversifying it, figuring out what works. And then on the day to day level, be having those conversations, be
Yeah, I think
nurturing.
you have to stay proactive. I think that's the like number one thing about sales. I do also want to mention maybe another useful resource, since we were talking quite a bit about like selling with integrity. We actually just did, it's a free course. I mean, it's really just me talking for an hour and it's like split into 4 little sections. But I did a workshop for a small group, and the woman who hosted it, she was very kind to make it into a free course. So it's available online, and there, it's quite a nice presentation where I go more into depth about like defining your ICP, understanding like where to find them, how to find them, like different ways that you can reach out to them, and a bit more about this perception and kind of overcoming the fear of rejection and stuff like that. So I'm happy to share the link with you.
Yeah.
It's free to access, so
Yeah.
maybe people would find it useful as well.
Yeah. That'd be brilliant. I'll make sure to, yeah, send that over and I'll make sure to link it and call it out in one of the posts that I make about this.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, no worries. So I'm interested in this idea of, how do we distinguish and define purpose-driven brands and stuff, and whether it's in the climate and sustainability and like nature sort of sector. As a visual agency, I'm like really thinking about how like moving forward we can help these brands define themselves as like different than the the traditional sort of like corporate,
Profit
slapping
driven.
shiny colors on on a brand just to make it look impressive and to catch your attention, but to actually like bring in a real identity of like organic, like earthly colors and imagery and everything into these brands, even if it's a tech brand or if it's like a sustainable finance brand or anything like that. I was wondering, moving forward, do you think that is like a good strategic decision, um, to like really double down on who your identity is as a brand, and to really like double down on speaking to the people who care about what you care about?
I think it's a great question. I mean, there's a few questions in there, I guess. So, it really upsets me that it is very difficult to, when you do research, like when you do traditional sales research and you just like filter by company size and by industry and vocation and all that good stuff. And there is no filters that can tell you that they work, that they're purpose led.
Yeah,
There is like environmental sciences or just like some crazy filters that don't always match. And a lot of like, for example, like you mentioned, like agencies, that do creative agencies, marketing agencies. Like I don't know if you must be familiar with B Corp, right? So it's a B Corp certification, yeah. And it can be any type of business, but it's very difficult to find them if you're looking, like there's no filter for purpose led. So
yeah,
I really wish for my own selfish reasons, because these are the businesses we want to work with. And it's like, it's so difficult to find them without spending a lot of manual work, like actually, researching. But I think how I define purpose led, I mean, just don't do any harm to people and to the planet, like even if you just do that, you will already be much better than a lot of businesses out there. And then you can take it a step further and you can like actually donate 1% of your revenue to environmental causes. Or you can, there's different platforms that you can sign up with, where for every sale that you make, you buy a meal for a child in need or a textbook or something like this. Or like there's so many different small things. You can just give your employees like opportunities to volunteer. Like people love to volunteer, but it's a little bit difficult to find, to organize. And I think it's like such a great way to improve your employee retention and just to give people purpose and meaning, right? Like people are more excited to work for your company if they feel good. So yeah, there are all these things like you don't have to go out of your way. You don't need to solve the climate crisis. Like you can just do nice little things like that.
yeah,
But I think, yeah, like B Corp certification is, they have this great online assessment tool. So even if you don't want to become certified, I think it's a great idea to take it. Like it's free and it just gives you lots of ideas and kind of new perspectives on how you can make impact as a business. And it's even about like your suppliers, right? And also like people that you work with. So every decision that you make, it can be impactful or harmful. Um, so yeah, so that's in terms of like how to define the purpose led. And then what was the second part of your question? It was whether you think people should go like all in on
mm,
this and how. Well, I guess the real question is like how do we make it profitable, right? How do we balance purpose and profit? I don't have the magical answer for that, unfortunately, but I do believe that they don't have to be mutually exclusive. And there's a lot of brands, there's a lot of B Corps that are super successful
yeah.
financially and also doing something positive for people and for the planet. So I think we're really deep in the weeds with just how the world works. Like I don't know if you've seen this new documentary on Netflix, Buy Now, the shopping conspiracy.
I haven't watched it yet. No.
Yeah, it's very depressing. I mean, it's just one of the many, but it's yeah, just how how the business is made. It's all about profit and consumerism. It's more, 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 and we don't consider like the yeah, the just the end of the life of any product. So I think we have a lot of work that needs undoing for sure. But ultimately, I think it's it's a choice. We can just just wait for somebody else to fix it and just kind of pretend like okay, we're okay with it, or we can stand up for what we believe in and try to make a difference. And I think it's better to take the choice, and to at least try to. Yeah, even if I think if you don't know how to make impact, you can just do what you're best at. So in my case, it's I'm good at sales and do that for people who make impact. So help them to be more successful.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's what brought me about to founding my own agency. It's like I think eventually you have to take responsibility for your own work, and the value that you're bringing into the world. And yeah, the best way to do that is to just commit to it. It's scary, but I find that I get up in the morning and go to bed at night with a pretty clear mind.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's I think you need to have purpose. Otherwise it's not going to work. It's not going to last
Yeah,
long.
yeah,
I mean, I don't know, maybe if you're like a really soulless person, you can somehow make it, but you need to have some kind of purpose.
yeah, yeah. And then on that, would there be one sort of project or client who you worked with where you were really happy with the impact, and it's sort of, speaking to that, like it really spoke to your purpose and you really felt like you had achieved what you showed up to achieve?
Yeah. So I mean, for every client, like setting up a meeting. So when we generate a lead, it's so exciting. It's the highlight of the day. Like I'm so happy when we can deliver what we said we would do. And also because our approach is so like quality over quantity. So once we set up a meeting, we know it's a qualified lead and like it's going to be a great opportunity. I guess to give a specific example, I think the most rewarding work is with nonprofits. Like no offense to our other clients, it's just incredible to know. Like, for example, we worked with a nonprofit who was working with families, like struggling families, financially struggling, less advantaged, with young kids under 5. And we were, helping them with finding new corporate partners. And they told us that before working with us, for 3 years, they were trying to find corporate partnership and, no luck. And then we came along, and in 3 months, we introduced them to, I think, about 12 businesses. And I mean, it's not a transaction, right? It's a relationship that you're trying to build. It doesn't happen like, okay, you make the introduction and they give you, write a check for whatever
Yeah,
20,000 and they move on. And that's not what you want. Like you want them to stay your partner for, multiple years and to nominate you for like charity of the year and stuff like that. So it is an ongoing, like they're still building the relationship, but I already know, like we received such great feedback from the CEO of the charity. And she was saying like, oh, they already arranged like some Christmas gifts for the kids and like some employees started volunteering. And it's just great to know that, some kids received Christmas gifts that they otherwise wouldn't have received because we sent some cold emails, because we found some organizations that, just introduce them to each other.
yeah,
And like, even though those are, little examples, but it's like tangible examples of somebody's life being better because of, us making those introductions. So it's great. I love it. And I definitely want to do like more, more of that.
yeah,
And to, just to help amplify the impact and help these kind of businesses to be successful and profitable so that they can keep doing the amazing work that they do.
yeah. Well, yeah, I think that just sums up purpose-led B2B lead generation right there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very specific. I wish that it also made more money, but yeah, for nonprofits, like it's not the money making kind of part of our business for sure. So we need to work with for-profit companies to be able to help the companies with the smaller budgets. So it all kind of evens out. But it is like just how it makes you feel.
Thank you very much for joining me, Ayna. And it's been brilliant talking to you and learning a bit about what Matchstick does. So, yeah, keep an eye out for the episode, and I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Yeah, thank you so much, Brian, and good luck in everything that you do. And yeah, I look forward to sharing it on my LinkedIn and looking forward to the future episodes.
Yeah, thank you.